When he turned his back from shoulder to shoulder, it looked like as wide as the tailgate of a truck.
And just darkness, literal darkness, just came like all over, just all over me except where I was standing.
This thing let out the most blood-curdling, mind-blowing, spine-tingling scream that you've ever heard in your life, and it cut through me like a knife.
And I knew that they were going to take me. I just knew it. And then the next thing I can remember is being levitated.
Well, when I look in there, I see two big eyes staring back at me.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to the Bump Podcast, a place for the believers of the unexplained, monsters, and paranormal. Join us, and we'll go face to face with what goes bump in the night.
Hey there, believers. I got another fun show for you today. This week, I'm bringing back on Tyler and Chris from Docside Media. And they have a new project called In Plain Sight. And it's a documentary this time about the government cover-up and what they're trying to hide with the UFO UAP phenomena. I have tried 3 or 4 times and had to cancel with Chris and Tyler. It just don't line up sometimes, but these guys are awesome. They've been very patient with me. I think both of us had schedule conflicts actually over the course of the last couple of months. I was hoping to get this out a few weeks ago, but here we are. While we wait for Tyler to jump on, let me just remind everybody that Patreon and the website are open. You can join, be a member, a believers only section on either one of those, whichever platform is best for you. We have additional content. We have early release stuff. There's a big project that we're working on right now called Shadow Appalachia that I've been brought on board with, and I'll be doing some teaser trailers and early release kind of information stuff on there on the website and on Patreon. So if you're interested in that, check that out. Other than that, I just want to thank everybody for your support. Things are growing, and let's go ahead and just bring Tyler and Chris on now. All right, today we have Tyler and Chris back with us. I've already done the pre-intro, so we can just get straight into it. I would like to start off, if that's okay, by saying that this is probably my favorite documentary you guys have done so far.
Dang, that's what we like to hear.
I mean,
Let's go, Buffalo.
I mean,
Heck yeah.
I get into the conspiratorial side of things, but you guys brought some pretty heavy hitters as far as, witnesses and people coming forward. I was very impressed, man. I loved every minute of it. You nailed it. You nailed it.
Thanks, dude. That means a lot. We're pretty proud of it too. But the response we've been getting has been pretty overwhelming. I think we're just really excited to see people consuming it, watching it, and then giving us their feedback. Because the worst thing that can happen is when we make something is if we don't hear anything at all, good, bad, or indifferent, it's kind of like, oh, nobody's even watching this thing. Yeah. But the best thing is like so many people saying, oh, this is your best one yet. I loved it. And all these these like synchronistic moments where they're like, this thing in this movie, like I had something like that happen. Whatever it is, that's the stuff that really like hits home for us, I think.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so what inspired you guys to do it, to do this one? Like, to go the route you did? It's kind of a bold move, A lot of times you hear about people getting shut up when you start getting into government interference and Men in Black level type stuff. So what made you guys go for it?
Yeah, no. Thankful I'm still here, man. I'm so optimistic and positive and just nothing but good vibes that I hope if any of them cats are keeping tabs on me, they're like, oh, dude, he doesn't mean any harm. You know? Like, and same with Chris. Chris is a good guy as well. And so, like, the way it came to be was I believe it was November of 2021. So, like, 11 months ago, I saw that retired CIA officer John Ramirez, who's featured in our doc. I saw he was doing some different interviews on various YouTube channels and had done a PowerPoint presentation. I can't remember how long it was, but it was lengthy. And he did his due diligence and sent it in to the CIA, and they like signed off on it. And he was like, it doesn't mean everything in there, like it's true or it's CIA's opinion, but they said it's okay if I say all this stuff. So I saw that. I'm like, Chris, dude, what about if we make like a documentary about like In Plain Sight, the Intelligence Community and UFOs? He's like, yep, let's do it. So went and interviewed John Ramirez. After that, we got MUFON field investigator Jesse Peak. For the listeners and viewers out there, MUFON, that's your mutual UFO network. So he's out of Philadelphia. He's interviewing people that are seeing UFOs, having abduction experiences, implants, that sort of thing. So he's boots on the ground. From there, we went and after that, we got Tom Carey, his interview, who's a Roswell author and expert. The guy's written 12 novels on Roswell, interviewed over 600 first and secondhand witnesses. And my man was doing it like in the 90s where he didn't have Google, Twitter. He couldn't DM people. I mean, he's like doing phone book, like library research, calling people. You know what I mean? It's like it must have taken an incredible amount of effort for him to write those novels. He just released one recently, but certainly, when he started, it had to be super tough. Then from there, we got Eric Mintel, who's an paranormal investigator and experiencer himself. With Eric Mintel Investigates out of Bucks County area in Pennsylvania. And then from there, as fate would have it, we ended up landing Richard Doty, who's a former Air Force Office of Special Investigations counterintelligence officer. And, I kept telling Chris before we landed him, like, dude, we've got great interviews, great footage, but if we're doing a doc on the intelligence community and UFOs, we need somebody else in the intelligence community. And we're able to manifest this interview with Richard Doty. And, that really completed, gave Chris all the material he needed to start interweaving those stories in post-production in the edit.
Yeah, man, it was.
So that's how it came together in a nutshell.
Yeah, it was awesome. When you brought on Richard Doty, I believe I have one of his books somewhere. Yeah. No, that's Richard Dolan. No, I don't have one of his books. But okay. I saw his name up there, man, and I was like, oh my gosh. I was shocked. I was shocked. Like, you guys, you outdid yourselves, man. I
Thanks. Thanks, homie. And like you said, dude, it is, it's an adventure. I mean, it feels like we are living like in like a Jason Bourne movie, bro, where like I'm flying out, to interview these people, and like looking over my shoulder and whatnot, right? Like, or stopping along the highway, getting out of the rental car, smoking a cig, just, kind of making sure nothing is following me kind of deal. I needed the cig anyways, but while I'm here, let's just make sure I'm not being tailed.
Yeah.
And, yeah, so it was just like, it is kind of whatever, a little crazy in that sense, or hairy, because, right, you do hear these stories and, I show up and John Ramirez is like, oh, yeah, the CIA, they know you're coming, like, so he had told them, right, that I was coming to interview him. So it's, yeah, it was just really, really interesting. And, dude, this is a great for any of the listeners or viewers out there that are fans of Docside Media. Here's a little Easter egg for you. If you saw any of our other docs, I actually interviewed Richard Doty at Sue Walker's house. And it's not like they didn't know each other from Adam. It was just logistically, as I'm trying to schedule this, it's like, oh, dude, oh my gosh. Well, hey, Richard, would you be able to meet me here? And so it was cool. That's a neat little Easter egg.
That is cool. That's cool how that worked out. Did you notice anything like, was there anything anomalous going on while you were doing the filming or doing your interviews? Like, did you have like the wiretapping, you know, like that noise, the clicking and stuff like that that you would usually get if you're being listened to? Did you have anything weird go on?
I didn't. Now, granted, it was a bit of a whirlwind only because for Richard, I flew in at 11 p.m. into Albuquerque, drive 3.5 hours south down to Roswell, because I'm like, well, I got to wake up when the sun rises and get drone footage and B-roll footage for the stock, just because I'm here, right? I got to do it. So I drive down there, sleep in my car for 2 hours, get that footage, drive all the way back to Albuquerque to Sue's place, get there at noon. Richard I get stuff set up. Sue and Otter help me. Richard shows up at 1. I interview him for an hour and a half, and then fly back to the airport and hop on the plane at 3:30 to fly back home. So maybe just because I was going so fast, there was something like that occurred. But to the best of my knowledge, I mean, I didn't. It was odd. I didn't. Nothing pinged my spidey senses at all during these interviews.
Yeah.
It was very interesting, in my opinion, that John Ramirez and Richard Doty, both just very human people, meeting them. Richard, very disarming. He's not gregarious or, it's not like he's trying to befriend me. He's just kind of quiet and stuff, a little bit nervous beforehand, like you normal people get with cameras and lights and a mic on you and all that. Right. So it was very a very humanizing experience. And I did not get any gut feelings that anybody during these interviews were not being genuine and sincere in what they were saying that they saw and heard. And Chris can speak on that too, having not been there and then just having the footage to edit, right? And just seeing a person, you can tell oh, dude, something seems off. So Chris, what was your feeling on seeing these different interviews, especially from former counterintelligence and CIA?
Yeah, I mean, it's always interesting seeing the raw interviews or being there in person. I mean, you get a sense of people. And for everything we've done so far, I've never gotten a sense that the people we're speaking to weren't being sincere. But a lot of the interviews I'm not at. So for instance, the Richard Doty and John Ramirez one, 2 very different people, but interesting in the raw edit to see their personalities play out, uncut, not distilled down to the cinematic thing where it's just raw, because John Ramirez speaks very personally. He told a lot of stories about when he was a kid and growing up and all kinds of things that just didn't make it into the movie because they just didn't really kind of fit with the story we ended up telling. But it gave me more insight into his character. It made me I was endeared to him quite a bit more, because it seemed like everything he was talking about when he would talk about the UFOs and these experiences he's had, they clearly had a personal touch on him and his life. On the other hand, you got Richard Doty, who is a very controversial figure, and he's incredibly interesting to listen to, and his stories are incredibly interesting, and he tells them like he's giving you a presentation, probably because of his background, where it's just yes, so matter of a fact, right? But the whole time I'm unsure if I trust him or believe him, just because you know what his job was, to spread disinformation. Right. So I mean, people always turn over a new leaf, change their ways and stuff, and maybe that's what he's doing. But it's still in the back of my mind. I'm like, are you being serious? Is this real right now? I don't know. But I also don't get the impression that he's full on lying or anything. But man, it was his job. So he's got to be good at it if that's what he's doing. So either way, interesting dude.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a safe statement to make. Very interesting dude. Hey, did you guys, because I've been into aliens and stuff like that since I was a kid. But there's still tidbits that come out that they say, just like you said, so matter of factly, that kind of rock me. How are they hiding this? And how these guys are just flat talking about it. Did you pick up or learn anything new about to what extent the government had relationships with these entities or beings or whatever you want to call them? Like, was any of this like mind blowing to you?
Oh yeah, I'm pooping my pants at I mean, I'm keeping myself composed, but I'm like, oh, this is just great. I'm loving everything I'm hearing right now. This is amazing. And there was stuff said off camera then, like that was just matter of factly to me. I'm like, wait, what?
But
what?
But also, I think it's hard. It's hard for us, Tyler and I, because we're always looking at it like what will make the best and most compelling documentary. And so oftentimes you're in an interview and like, okay, yeah, this is interesting. This is interesting. And then the guy says something, you're like, oh shit, that is perfect for the movie. And so it's like this selfish thing where, you know what I mean? We're like thinking like, oh, this'll fit so perfectly in there. And so like half the time that like really interesting stuff kind of goes over our heads because we're like focused on, you know, the movie aspect of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I thought there was a lot of like new information, and that's what we've been told by other podcast hosts that we've been on. They're like, wow, you know, I've consumed this content and studied this for a long time, and man, the stuff they were talking about, yeah, some of that stuff was completely new to me. Right. Even about, say, like the Roswell incident. I'm like, oh wow, that's really cool. And dude, for your listeners and viewers, here's another nugget. So I go on a podcast the other night, and the host is Deb's Data Dojo, and she just so happened to be like friends with John Ramirez, the retired CIA officer. I mean, had, I guess, befriended him or connected with him, networked with him after he started, you know, giving these talks and whatnot back in November. But so she, like, unbeknownst to me, just went and asked him, hey, you know, what did you think of In Plain Sight, the Intelligence Community and UFOs? And the statement she read, he was just, you know, super like, wow, you know, these guys are just super professional, did a great job. This is so polished. And I was very happy to see that there was other people talking about information that you had to be read into to know. And dog, my heart nearly exploded when she said that. I'm like, bro, that is cool. I mean, it's just insane. Like, just how the stars aligned. And, you know, John watched it, and yeah, we weren't getting his feedback or anything. He just, to another person, happened to mention that. I'm like, yo, that's really sick.
Yeah, it really is, man. And what kind of coincidence is that she knew, you know, she knew him too.
Yeah. It was, I don't know. She's a good researcher, and she's like a dog with a bone, where she just reaches out to everybody.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I don't know. I guess, you know, all things considered, it's not super like, out of the ordinary, but the fact that, yeah, she drops it while we're on this podcast, and it was just like, oh, and it was like, you know, it had only been out a couple days at that point. You know, who knows? Like, we let John know it was released, but, you know, people have lives. They can't just drop everything and watch it on a Tuesday night all the time.
Right.
So yeah, it was just cool how it all worked out.
That is cool. Said. Now, people have had time to watch it by this point. So I don't want to ask you guys to give spoilers, but I wouldn't want to ask if we could have released this the first time. I mean, you know, with the scheduling conflicts we had, man, we had to move stuff like 3 or 4 times. But now that they've had a few weeks, could you guys tell me what, like, your favorite part is? Like, just like a sample of, like, what was it for you that stood out the most about this? Like,
well, for me, one, I kind of already touched on it, but was seeing John Ramirez's stuff that actually isn't even in the documentary was actually really touching. But when we were interviewing Tom Carey, when he talks about extratemporal species, UFOs, aliens, however he wanted to say it, I remember talking to Tyler after we filmed, and I was like, that was a really interesting concept that he just touched on there. I wish we would have got more of that from other people, because that was fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And the fact that he got that information from Werner von Braun, who was like a Nazi scientist. He came over during Operation Paperclip, and Tom Carey got this information from his sons, who he interviewed, like the sons of Werner von Braun, when he interviewed them. So I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm with Chris. That was really dope. There's actually some, like, I don't know. There's just some really, really sick stuff that these guys are talking about, from hybrids, to beings at Roswell and stuff like that. All fascinating for whatever reason. I don't know why, but I love John Ramirez's story about working as a signals intelligence analyst for the CIA. I think it was in the 90s, I want to say, monitoring Russian airspace, right? And seeing, a UFO, an anomaly come up on the screen, and then seeing the Russians notice it and respond to it. So it's like, holy cow, like, yeah, this isn't ours, this isn't theirs. I'm watching this in real time. And so I don't know, but for whatever reason, that, like, I always just love that little tidbit. It's like, oh man, it's really neat. Yeah, it's just fascinating to hear that side of it, aside from all this cool stuff about Roswell, and all that. But I like that. I like that part of it.
Yeah, because when you hear stuff like that, that goes like inside the CIA. Like that gives you a glimpse of they're doing what? They're sitting here watching Russian airspace. Like we are James Bond and these guys right now. We're totally spying in on these guys, and you happen to catch this activity and watch them, how they respond to that activity. It's like 3 levels of cool.
Exactly, because they were looking for like ballistic missiles. I think that was his his like specialty or whatever. So yeah, dude, you're thinking, man, monitoring this airspace, looking for ballistic missiles, tracking something into it from the Arctic Circle. The Russians, right? They're mobilizing, like, what the heck is going on here? So you realize, like, oh, well, it's obviously not their ballistic missile if they're like responding to it, having countermeasures or whatever. So yeah, I love that part of it, man. What about you? Well, did you have a favorite part?
The one that stands out was the additional information about the Roswell case. It's one thing to say, yeah, they recovered a body, or they suspect that maybe there was an entity that was kept or whatever. But this is like specifics, like how many years they kept this guy alive. You know what I mean? It's like, what? I loved it. I loved it. And you just let him go, man. Like, and you all shared it. Like, I know there's additional off the record stuff or off the camera stuff that they talked about, but you guys just gave up the goods, and I love that.
And it's amazing, man. It's just, I think it's the whatever, the heartbeat of Docside Media, and that we just let these people share their stories. We're not really like directing them on where to go with it. Sometimes, right, they'll say something, and like when the cameras get hot after 30 minutes, I'll have to give them a signal, hey, we got to let these things cool. So I'll be like, hey, when we come back, could you, expound on that a little bit, and then go, wherever. And so, yeah, it's neat. And like Richard, to see him, just be talking like matter of factly, and then just like catch himself, and he'd be like, oh, I can't actually say anything more about that. And then it was just, yeah, it was really, really neat, man. So when he's talking about that stuff, it just, I don't know, man, it gets me fired up. And there was the report that was supposed to be due here from Congress on the 31st, like the new UAP report by law, and they like delayed it, and I think it's even indefinite, right? They're saying like, oh, something about, I think they're saying the end of this week, they're hoping, which would not be surprising, right? It comes out on a Friday, so it kind of like gets buried in the weekend news.
Oh yeah, gives you the weekend, yeah, for sure.
People, yeah. But it's just so weird that report was like due, and there's like no like real hard concrete answer on, hey, this is why it's delayed, and this is when it's coming out.
It's you guys are why it's delayed.
Probably. And that's what we're hoping, man. Because like dude, a part of me, you say you're into the conspiracy side, or you understand that, man, there's been enough government, like Operation Northwoods and stuff, which was rejected, but there's been enough things proposed, and certainly like proven that they were 1,000% true, that it's like, oh, dude, you never really know, right? What are they capable of? Sure. And so my mind's like, well, look, if the cat is eventually coming out of the bag and disclosure is going to happen, I feel like a smart nation or intelligent nation with an intelligence community would want to do their best branding it and presenting or getting the population like comfortable with different things so that it's not rocked. So it's like, dude, maybe we just happen to start doing these documentaries at the right time where, yeah, all of these different intelligence officers, Department of Defense, like NASA, right, is forming like a team to study data and UAP. So it's like, well, why is everybody doing this? You know, I feel that like if anybody's really into branding or marketing, it's like, well, we got to get ahead of this, right, so that it hits right and the narrative, you know, like people are comfortable with it and it's looked at in a favorable light versus a hostile light.
Right. Yeah. And doing it in this way, like just so happens a couple of weeks before the report comes out, if there's anything that comes out of that report that's going to agree with what's in the doc, you know, that's just it's a beautiful thing. It's not like you guys are replying to the report. You guys aren't giving out old information. You guys are still ahead of the game on this. You know, it's like, does the doc, you know, does the report include this because we have this solid information from ex-CIA operatives? You know, that's a wonderful thing. You guys are smart, or it's just fate, or both. You know,
rather be lucky than good, man. I think it's probably destiny, man. Just kind of fate in the stars. I know, you know, there was another documentary, Moment of Contact, that came out here the same day as ours by James Fox. You know, who's a big UFO filmmaker, and you know, there was a clip of him doing an interview saying, you know, somebody in the Department of Defense or whatever, like contacted him and said, man, you could not have picked a better time to release this. Like, I don't know how you knew, but, and it's just like, wait, what? Just really fascinating. And I guess since it's not, we alluded to it a little bit, but I find it very a synchronicity that, you know, in plain sight, the intelligence community and UFOs is a good bit of talk, you know, about a live extraterrestrial biological entity. And then I believe in Moment of Contact, James Fox's documentary is also talking about a live, you know, that there was a live extraterrestrial, and it was about, you know, a case down in Brazil or whatever.
Oh wow.
But so either way, it's just weird that they both hit that. And I don't know if they were going out to try that, but we certainly weren't. You know, that's just what came out of these interviews.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wonderful. I haven't watched that other documentary. You know, I haven't really had a chance to lift my head up in the last month or so, man. But yeah, there was something else. Oh my gosh, yes, entities, biological. I just did an interview last night, and we got onto the subject of UFOs. This guy had seen some crazy stuff. 100% believable, but crazy. Just the way these things seem to morph. These UFOs were morphing in the air and stuff. And that got me thinking. I've already had the thought, but the terminology, you guys know it went from UFO to UAP. Why do you think that is? Because for me, I thought maybe if some of these pictures that I've seen and some of the reports that I've been told are true or accurate, it almost sounds like the craft itself is some sort of biological entity. Like we're looking at, you know, a living something out there. Maybe not a craft at all. It is its own being. Would that spur them to change it to aerial phenomena because they don't know what that is? but it's not just a flying object. It's like something alive. Have you all heard anything else about that kind of stuff?
That's a possibility. I guess my first thought would be possibly they renamed it to make it sound more credible, because how long has there been a stigmatism for the term UFO? People associate it with negative stuff a lot of times, where it's like, oh, this person's crazy, they believe in UFO, all this stuff. And so possibly by rebranding it UAP and then officially putting out these government documents, it's like, oh, this is an official thing. Again, maybe it goes more towards like the soft disclosure aspect of the whole thing. But you're right. I mean, I think because humans are just trained by what they see, we always assume aliens are going to be like hominids, you know what I mean?
Right.
But who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I think to that point, Chris, it's like, like Facebook, right? They went and rebranded as Meta, because they wanted to create this new image. It's like no longer really called Facebook, right? Like their company name is Meta. If like you look it up on the New York Stock Exchange or whatever. So and trying to, like rebrand. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the UAP is like trying to be like rebranding to get just a new different because here's the thing, it's like, oh well, like my 8-year-old child, Chris has young kids, like they may not know the term UFO, right? Like they might only know the term UAP. So in their consciousness and subconscious, it's always been UAP, and for the next generation it'll be the same, and the next and the next. So maybe it's easier to get people comfortable with the new term. Also, would not be shocked if like it's something that, man, as we're gathering more data, as we're having more scientific, highly intelligent people looking into this, as we're understanding like quantum physics more, maybe it's something where it's like, oh, well, they're really not flying. They're using quantum entanglement. They're just moving from point A to point B by harnessing, like anti-gravity or whatever it is, this quantum entanglement where they just connect the 2 points and go. So, maybe it's something like that. So they're starting to rebrand it as, hey guys, you got to stop thinking of these things flying. No, if this is a simulation or whatever, like, or a hologram, boop, boop, like they can just pick any point. Like if we were above a chessboard and boop, boop, just move it from one to the other. And it's like, instantaneous. Well, with quantum entanglement, it's instantaneous. So yeah, that could be a possibility, because it's like, dude, the human species, man, we can't see past the end of our nose. Like we really can't. We don't know what 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 years looks like in technological evolution. We don't, man. The fact that my 8-year-old is like helping his probably mid-50s or whatever teacher, third grade teacher, like connect to the projector, right, and do different electronic things that you think, hold on, wait, this is a full-grown adult human being. How can they not intuitively know how to get whatever the screen up on the projector? And kids, it's just, that's what they know, right? And there's some of these kids that are in Minecraft or something that are like Michelangelo, like they're, you know what I mean? Like the level of creativity and dedication and passion to build a world out. And it's like, dude, these kids are 5, 6, 7, 8. It's like, holy cow, that's nuts. We were not, dude, you should have seen the forts I was building at 5 and 6. They were dog crap, dude. The wolf would have blown it down in a sneeze. So it's wild. Yeah. Another 10, 150 or 100, 250 years of that. It's like, dude, I don't know what children might be more productive than us. Who knows?
Yeah. You brought up a lot of good points there, man. A lot of good points. Because one generation ago, when I was my kid's age, there was no cell phone. There was like maybe a bag phone for your car or something that your parents might have had. But, and now it's like all the technology in the world, all the information ever disclosed is right there,
Went through all of high school and like most of college without a cell phone.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
You know what I mean?
I did get one at 16, but my son is like begging me, asking for one for Christmas. I'm like, bro, you're 8, dog.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you
What do you got a giant iPad that does the exact same thing? But well, yeah, I know, but
No, he's got to text those ladies, all right?
Dude, I guess. I don't know. But it's disturbing that I'm even considering, like 8's too young. But the fact that my mind is even like, God, dude, he is really mature for his age. He's respectful of it. It's like, dude, my parents would have never in a billion years got me a cell phone at 8 years old.
I got a Game Boy when I was like 12.
Exactly, dude. They don't know how good they have it on these car rides, bro. I'm like, dog, you have it made.
Yeah, man.
Eventually, I got a Game Boy, and it could help pass the time. But for a long time there, bro, it was staring out the window, man.
Dude,
listening, like just whatever, dreaming stuff up in your head, listening to whatever was playing on the radio. Like that's what you did for 3.5 hours, 12 hours to the beach, whatever it was. You just grinned and bared it, bro, because you didn't know any different.
Yeah, but when that Game Boy Advance came out, the shit was off the chains. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, dude. Oh, absolutely, man. That made my life infinitely better. I'd go to my sister's baton competitions. I could sit there all day at those.
For sure.
They just kept playing that on repeat till you go insane. But dude, once I had the Game Boy, I was fine.
Don't matter. Yeah. Oh my God, Kevin.
Well, let me ask y'all this, because the closest thing to a CIA informant or whatever you want to call this guy that I've had on my show that I know of was my own dad. He worked for the NSA, and he had a couple of really, really far out stories that he shared about his personal experiences. And people that listen to the show, they've all heard that already. I have a feeling maybe twice that he's been on there talking about it. But and I have my own UFO story, but I would love to hear about you. Have either of you had any kind of UFO story, any kind of sighting experience, closet abduction experience that you don't want to talk about, but you're going to release right here for the first time ever? Anything like that,
Chris, you go first.
I unfortunately do not.
What?
I know. But Tyler has some stuff.
Everybody's got a story.
Well,
I got stories for days, but not about UFOs.
Not about UFOs. It's not going to really answer your question. If the audience wants, just personal items about or personal stuff about Chris's life, we can fill you in there.
I can depress you guys for the next hour and a half if you'd like. No. Just let me know. I can unleash. Here we go.
That catch
so, dude, when I was out filming one of the campouts for Secrets of the Sasquatch, actually the dude bailed or had to reschedule, but I'm out by myself in a state park. 26-degree weather, setting up this tent. Like, it's already dark out when I hike in, and I'm pretty far back in. I don't know, it was like, I think a half mile or a mile, like not super far, but it's like, oh, one, like, 100 yards in. And as I'm setting this tent up, I happen to see this like light tracking across the sky. I'm like, dude, that's really weird. What the hell that is? And then it like stops, starts like dropping down, pauses, drops down towards the horizon more, pauses, drops down. And I'm like, at this point, I'm like, oh, what the? So I'm like pulling my phone out, go to like film it. And then by that time, it's like down below the tree line. I'm like, what? So I made a quick, I made a Reddit post after I got everything set up. But at the time, I didn't have like a ton of brain power to commit to like processing it. Cause like, dude, I had to get a fire ring built. And then make a fire before I froze to death. So I was doing all this stuff, and just wasn't totally sure. But after I interviewed Sue Walker for Conscious Contact Full Disclosure, and she is a clairvoyant and medical intuitive, and her experience is she's in telepathic contact with the Ponte extraterrestrials in the Sandia Mountains, and of New Mexico. So like when I was going to leave her interview, she's like, hey, we found that a lot of times the Ponte visit the people that have stopped out here to interview me, especially if they, like verbally state that they're okay with it. I'm like, yep, no, I'm fine with that. I'm comfortable with it. She's like, what about your son? I'm like, yep, he's cool with it. Fast forward, I get home a few days later, just some odd kind of hitchhiker effects start happening. Son's medication disappearing, his inhaler like being there and then like 1 second and then like what the hell, like grid walking the living room looking for this thing for a couple minutes, him and I, and then it just like appears like, you know, a couple feet away from me on the floor. I'm like, wait, what? We just like, how is that there? So we had a few things like that happen, and where my son was just starting to get like a little bit unnerved. He's like, Dad, this is like, what is this going on? Like this bag was moving, you know, in the house. There's like no draft. It was just stuff that was odd. And he's like not one to embellish and stuff. Like whatever, all these things we were experiencing. And it kind of just got to the point. I'm like, hey, look, bro, you know, say it's these Ponti or extraterrestrials, whatever. If they're just messing with us, like they're just teasing, bro. They wouldn't be doing us harm. If they wanted to, we'd already be gone. We'd be done. So here's the deal. I'm like, yo, Ponti, if you're out there just, you know, poking fun at us, messing with us, please make Dad the best filmmaker in the whole world. And dog, that was I don't know what I think I'm trying to think. Would have been like probably late September, early October of 2021. Bro, we've got 4 documentaries picked up since then. So if the Ponti are out there helping nudge this thing along, more power to them. We didn't have any odd things happen after that, like proclamation either. So yeah, it could be all coincidence, but it was interesting nonetheless.
Man, you set my brain to places I didn't expect it to go. Like, you know, all right, my show is all about unexplained and monsters and paranormal kind of activity. And if these beings are able to pick up your open communication, they're getting your consent, they're doing trickster activity, you know, this falls in line with so many other things throughout lore. You know, it's and plus the description of how a lot of these entities look kind of goes along with older descriptions in lore, you know, like the Fae, you know, the skinny bodies, the tricksters, the little people, the leprechauns, the, you know, modern poltergeist activity, demonic activity, especially with the consent. And it's just so crazy how all of this stuff seems to pull in together. Did the people you talked to yet, did they allude to anything about like an ancient like an ancient connection, like these are the same characters that have been in play? Like, you know, I would imagine, and I'm just spitballing here, man. You guys,
I think Eric Mintel at one point touches on some of that stuff, but it is interesting how like we kind of make up things for stuff we don't understand.
Yeah.
So like you're talking about all these creatures that, you know, from like stories, right?
Yeah.
That have been passed down for years and years and years. And it's like, at this point, we think it's just superstition. It's just, oh, it's this children's story. It's just this made up thing. But what's to say that it wasn't something real and it's been distilled down, that whisper down the lane effect over generations and generations and generations?
Right.
That there isn't a nugget of truth to some of that. And it was just a more primitive culture trying to explain the unexplainable to themselves. We still do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, man, it's interesting. All that stuff. It's a wormhole, right? Like it's just a deep hole you keep going down and exploring as well. I mean, that's what your podcast is, right? That's what all these podcasts we go on are. And I think there's definitely a lot to, like, there's definitely a lot of, how do I want to say this? Like legitimate things amongst everybody's stories, especially with like large things like Roswell, where it's just like some of these facts seem concrete amongst everyone.
Right.
But then like Richard Doty will casually throw in new facts. And that's the stuff that is interesting, also muddies some of the stories because everybody starts throwing in their own information. And then you're like, well, is this true or is it this? Is it this and this? So maybe that's more that whisper down the lane effect. And you have to kind of use your best judgment to kind of navigate those waters of what you think is the most credible sources for this stuff. But I guess from our perspective, it's like we just want these people to openly be comfortable telling their stories and their experiences and let the audience decide. But we never want to give a platform to someone that we think is just trying to grift or trying to be insincere, because that kind of undermines our whole mantra we have with Docside Media, where it's just like, at the end of the day, we want you to watch this thing. We want you to be entertained, maybe informed, but we want you to leave it with a positive mindset and hopefully an open mind about a lot of this subject matter. Even if some of it seems silly, it's just like, just keep a little bit of that door open. Keep your mind open a little bit. And I think if we ever stumble across someone who we knew wasn't being sincere, that would just kind of undermine the whole message we're trying to get at here with Docside Media.
Yeah. And I think you capture that, you know, and I don't know how many I've watched, 3 or 4 or 5 that I've watched that you guys have done. It's definitely, you can feel the sincerity. It keeps the wonder going, you know, it keeps it, like you said, it keeps that door. It keeps you open-minded. It invites you to think. And that's a good thing. You know, that's what you want a documentary to do. There's got to be some information, but it's got to help you think on your own. And you guys are nailing it. I just can't say it enough.
Thanks, dude. Thanks.
Thanks for real, man.
No, and to go back just to your question, as far as people talk, we did for the listeners out there, if they happen to watch our first documentary, Conscious Contact Full Disclosure, there we interviewed Zuni Pueblo elder Clifford Behooty, right? The guy was on Ancient Aliens. But my man, you know, he has had this information passed down, right? Generation by generation by generation. So back to like your original question. Yeah, I mean, we have like, he was talking, I definitely vividly recall him talking about just, you know, this is like to them, the Zuni peoples, this is common like knowledge, right? This is their history, you know, these extraterrestrial beings, you know, help them. And so, yeah, dude, super fascinating. And I love, dude, I think what we're trying to do too is like, man, if we can help give a nudge to people's childlike wonderment, man, because I feel like that goes a long way in enjoying life and growing as a person. Like, you know, you think of like some greats like Albert Einstein or something. Like, I feel that guy was just always curious, right? And like, look how much he discovered and accomplished. Not thinking, oh, dude, this is silly. Why am I thinking this? It's like, oh, nah, dude. We need people to be like, huh, dude, I can be creative. I can be intelligent. I'm capable of a lot of stuff. Like, what really interests me? Man, I'd like to learn about that. And dude, when you approach it with that childlike wonderment, man, I think it just like, I don't know, helps you retain the information. It kind of helps shape you. It helps you want to go, you know, maybe talk to others about it in a just, you know, like in a respectful way, right? Not shoving anything, but like, oh, dude, I found this really neat, right? I don't know if you ever heard of this stuff, but I find this cool. So yeah, I hope that's what we're trying to do with these documentaries.
Yeah.
Like,
it shows.
Fire people up.
It shows. And you know, that's what you got to love about the technology age that we're in. I'm not great with computers. I'm not a big fan of computers, honestly, but it allows me to do this, you know, follow a passion, talk to people about the weird stuff, you know, try to figure stuff out, put stuff together. It's something that wasn't available to generations before us, and we got to take advantage of that.
Bro, if you were really, really a go-getter back then, your best option would have been like make some flyer and put it up at the comic book shop or something and hope maybe somebody shows up on a Saturday at noon or so, you know what I mean? Like, dude, just just to think, right, in just 20 years, like what the tools that have become available to allow you to pursue your passions, like it's wild to end in a much more like easier way. You know, the fact that just two guys, Chris and I, are cranking out like 4K ultra high def
Yeah.
documentaries is with drone footage and all this stuff and B-roll. It's insane, man. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, we could have done it, but it had been probably 1,000 times the amount of work. We would have needed many more people, and
way more
the budget
expensive.
probably just would have been ridiculous if we wanted anything that looked half decent.
Yeah, man, because we didn't even touch on that. Like the quality of this documentary, it's better than the last, and the last one was awesome. You know what I mean? Like it really is 4K ultra def or whatever you call it. It's incredible, you know, and you still got the you still got flair in there. You know, you make it fun to watch. It's enjoyable.
That's kudos to Chris. And I think, Chris, if you want to speak, you spend a lot, you know, and some viewers might not notice, but like if you're into film editing and you understand sound design and stuff and just little effect, like Chris, you just put in a lot more hours and time and effort, right?
Yeah, this one took longer than all the other ones. Not just because of like we added some more production quality with a bunch of sounds and stuff like that. So there's a bunch more sound design in this than there's been in any of the previous movies. And I don't know why it took longer. Maybe because the interviews were longer, or maybe because there was just so much to sift through and kind of figure out what fit into this storyline. That it ended up taking longer than we expected, but I think it shows in the final product. Definitely proud of this movie for sure. Yeah.
And by taking longer than expected, this is a shot at the Hollywood studios out there. I'm talking to my man Chris. It took him like, say, maybe 10 weeks to edit it front to back with all the revisions instead of 6 weeks like previous docs, or 4 weeks, right? So it's still breakneck speed. While raising kids and doing graphic design, just everything that he does, right? So it's a testament to just his amazing talent and skill. And hopefully other people will be able to do. Well, if Chris can do that, I'm sure I probably can too.
Oh, definitely.
It's not like we're just like we put the world on hold and we're just doing this 24/7. Like, bro, if what is it? 5 or a few flights for interviews, a few drives for local interviews. Yeah. Chris sits down, edits it all together. We do some revisions back and forth. I mean, it's just nuts. We've been able to crank out 4. The first 2 released in April of 2022. Here we are in November with 2 more out, and we're going to film more. So
this is not my full-time job.
Right.
I've got 2 kids. Tyler has a kid. It's not his full-time job either. So we just kind of make it happen. So
I quit my sales job. So it is. But I mean, I do.
Way to undermine my narrative.
Commercial
Holy
filming.
shit! But I'm saying, what I'm saying here is,
dude, you remember when I quit my job? You're like, Tyler,
what the hell are you
Tyler,
doing?
Bro. Chris got so anxious. He's like, dog, you quit your job? So yeah, bro, it'll be all right. I'm betting on myself, man. And if we fail, I'll just go get another job. What's the big deal? And so, but Chris, he was so he like, I told family and stuff, and they were like all cool and supportive of it. Chris was the most anxious out of everybody I know.
That's really surprising though to you at this point.
Nah, you're the yin to my yang, bro.
That's right. But my point is, dude, if there's something out there you're passionate about and you're like, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money, you can find it. You can make it happen. We don't spend a ton of money, making these things. It's just a lot of sweat equity, lots of time and effort that we find. So, but we appreciate, just hearing the impact and what people think of our efforts. So thanks for everything you said. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. You guys earned every word. You guys do a lot of good work, and it's keeping me entertained. I honestly, tell my family to watch this stuff. It's not like I'm just trying to cram it in before we talk. I enjoy it. You know what I mean? A lot of times people will send books to read or whatever else. and you feel like you have to hurry. You have to get this in there, and even if you don't feel like reading, here you got to sit down and read this book. But this is like, I get to watch your show. I get to sit back and enjoy this and take it in and take notes and text my dad, wait till this releases, because he's all into this stuff too. Everything you all have done, I've taken it in like entertainment. It's good. I enjoy it.
That makes me want to cry here on camera, bro. It really does mean a lot to us, man. It does. We're filmmakers, and yeah, we want to create interesting, informative, entertaining, and thought-provoking documentaries. And yeah, until we started and tried, like it was only like a belief in my head and my heart that, bro, we can do this. We can do this. We can get these picked up for distribution. And so I don't know. I would just encourage others out there, man, to help spin that stuff into the universe. Don't be afraid to think like, oh, dude, I think it's possible that we can get, a documentary filmed and it looked great and picked up for distribution. And bro, we were just on, we just had like a couple articles in the newspaper,
Nice.
Right? For Docside Media and Chris and I, on the Sunday newspaper, which like in the Lancaster newspaper, it's just dope, dude. The Sunday news, I got relatives texting me and stuff, we were on ABC 27, Good Day PA. So like a local news station out of Harrisburg.
Yeah.
Yesterday. So it's like, oh, dude, this is, or on Monday, it's just, these are things beyond our wildest dreams. But if we never tried, started putting our, our best foot forward and just really trying our best, man, that's all it is. Like, dude, I don't know. None of these doors would have opened. None of these things would have been possible. We would have never met you. The list goes on. So I would encourage others to just try and believe. Like, dude, I think it could happen. I deserve it to happen. There's no reason it can happen for other people and not me.
That's it.
Go.
That's the mindset. Like, somebody out there is going to do what I want to do. Why aren't I out there doing what I want to do? It's the same thing with this podcast. I was waiting and waiting and waiting. I was on a literal waiting list to be on somebody else's shows to talk about my experience. And I was like 4 months into waiting. I'm like, man, and then COVID hit, and everything was work from home. It's like, okay, so now I got Zoom. I have all this extra time. I like to talk about this stuff anyway. So I just went ahead and went for it myself. And then, 2.5 years later, I've put out a show every single week, sometimes 2 shows. And it's like the content is still there. There's people still going. It's still growing. It's in like the top 2% globally. It's just like, it's really happening. You know what I mean? I'm doing documentary work with some guys around here in Ohio. It's just, things are taking off, man, and it's because you put yourself out there. Like,
dude, let me ask you this: when it went work from home, did you have any experience with Zoom before?
No.
Or is that when you learned? So again, it's like, bro, the timing, right? Like you said earlier, you don't like computers,
right?
Like, what are the odds that like you were forced to use Zoom for your work, and it was like, bro, that's the exact nudge or experience you needed to be like, oh, well, gee, I'm already doing this. Huh. I can do this.
Yeah.
And so, dude, that's dope to hear how it played out like that. And me, I wouldn't be surprised if like the phenomenon or whatever maybe has like somehow nudges and pulls people in these directions. Like Chris and I, we were never really into aliens and UFOs, but it's crazy if we don't feel compelled like to make these documentaries. I don't know where it comes from. We could have made documentaries about anything.
Right.
Chris said about paranormal because he likes sci-fi and horror.
Yeah.
And so like, that was the seed that started this whole journey. And so same thing with you. It's like, oh, dude, you have this experience. Oh, I'll go on somebody else's podcast, but that's about it. And then like everything just had to line up and play out the way it did to put you in a position to start it on your own. And if it happens any other way, who knows if it, if we're here right now. So it's like, oh, dude, that stuff blows my mind constantly.
I know. And, there's a million names for it. People say fate or synchronicities or, whatever. For me, I just give credit to God. I think everything's on his timeline, and it happens for a reason, and everything works out for the good. It might suck while you're in it. It might feel like it's overwhelming or like it's not going to work out. But if you do your work, it always works out. It'll work out.
For sure.
All right. Drop some spoilers. Tell me what else you got coming.
All right, so we have it's gonna happen. Ghosts in the Graveyard, Pure Pandemonium. We've had a few start and stops in that documentary where we got there. It felt like this was the cursed documentary.
Yeah.
It fell through with our paranormal investigator, but looks like we might be getting a new paranormal investigator, a well-known one. I don't want to say too much more than that right now. But that is exciting. We hope to be scheduling some of that soon. But beyond that, the next thing we're working on is we're doing a Christmas ghost documentary in Bethlehem, PA. There is apparently a hotel there where at Christmas time there is a few spirits that visit the hotel, as well as a bunch of other places in the area. And I just thought that would be a really fun, interesting idea. I've never really seen a documentary around Christmas time for ghosts.
Right.
And I'm just like selfishly thinking this is going to be a good time, and that's why we're doing it. It took me a while to convince Tyler, but he's on board.
I think that's an awesome thing, because ghost stories, that's a traditional Christmas activity. If you listen to Christmas carols, they talk about telling ghost stories and a Christmas carol. Ain't that a ghost story or whatever?
Yeah, maybe,
great.
We're the next what is it, man? Now, dude, oh, shame on me. I want to say, what's the story of Scrooge? A Christmas Carol? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
A Christmas Carol. Yeah. So or a Christmas Story, the Christmas Story, whatever. There's a second one coming out, but those people have had that market cornered forever.
Yeah.
So Chris, I am on board now, because it's like, okay, we could potentially be the premier go-to Christmas movie for everybody in the world.
Yeah.
And dude, it's possible, because here's what's up. The doc, In Plain Sight, the Intelligence Community and UFOs, it released October 18th. We make some social media posts, whether it was the trailer or the poster, on Twitter, Reddit, Facebook, Instagram. Organically, dude, it went over 250,000 feeds, bro.
What? Awesome.
The mathematics, dude, that's one out of, for 7 billion people or whatever, or 7.8 billion people. It's like, dude, that's like one out of every 31,000 people in the world are aware of Docside Media or In Plain Sight, the Intelligence Community and UFOs. I'm just like, dude, that's just insane, man. Like, I don't know. I'm probably the only person crazy enough to think, dude, something like that was possible. Chris, definitely not. You would have never thought that in a million years.
Not happening.
But so, yeah, dude, it's cool. And just very humbling, and we can't explain it. I don't know why those posts, went viral. We've been putting out all these other docs. We just have never got anything quite that much traction. So, dude, it was cool. Maybe it was a Ponte.
It could be, man. You never know. It could be. They know the algorithm. They know.
Dude, no, for real. I don't think it hurts, man, when you put these things out. Everybody is certainly entitled to whatever beliefs they have.
Right, yeah.
So whether you call it God, creator of the universe, spirit of the universe, whatever is your jam. I don't think it hurts to throw out a prayer to the algorithm God at times, because I'm guilty of throwing it out at times. It never hurts. It can't hurt to throw it out, bro. And I'll be darned if the algorithm sometimes doesn't respond in kind. So it's who knows?
I love it. Yeah, I would.
But it is wild how that algorithm, bro, and it is crazy. I mean, all the social media channels, everything, bro. Like that is shaping people, right? Is it not?
It is. It is.
You know, and you see Elon, takes over Twitter, buys Twitter. It's like, well, let's hope it's a move for freedom of speech. But dude, what if it's a mass, like, well, we can shape everybody's personality the way that we would like to, by presenting them with the information that we want them to see. Like, I don't know. It's crazy. It wouldn't surprise me, dude.
That's how Google works, ain't it?
Yeah.
Google filters your searches. They have no qualms telling you. They filter your searches. They present to you what people have paid to have presented to you. And I would rather, like you said, I'd rather pray for the algorithms to work than pay for the algorithm to work. Because
True.
Ain't nobody getting rich out here yet. So
no.
Well, guys, is there anything else you want to hit on before we wrap things up for this edition?
I would just say go to docsidemedia.com, DocsideMedia.com to get access to all of our documentaries. All the links are there. In plain sight, the Intelligence Community and UFOs is available now everywhere: Amazon, iTunes, Google Play, Xbox, PlayStation, Vudu, Vimeo. If you want to find it, you should be able to find it, unless you're in Canada, which we're not quite sure why it's not available there. Too hot.
Well, it's
for
not
Canada.
there on Amazon.
Not there on Amazon.
Other platforms, it is.
Other platforms. Jeff Bezos cracking down on Canadian, I don't know, UFO documentaries. We don't know what that's about. But either way, please go check it out. And if you do, leave a review. One, that supports us and helps us and gets the movie, into that algorithm like we're talking about. But also, we want to hear your feedback from our own personal stance. We want to know what you like, what you didn't like. We just like hearing that people are engaging with the film and all the time and effort we put into it. So, in plain sight, the Intelligence Community and UFOs. Go check it out now, please.
Leave that review. It means a lot. And we're big enough people to understand, like, dude, we don't know everything. We're not the end all be all. So yeah, like if there's something you don't like about it, dude, let us know, because we're always willing and trying to become better filmmakers, better human beings, better fathers, right? Sons, all that good stuff. And we're just trying to grow on this journey. And we'd love for you to follow us on the socials and come along, because we put a lot of public call outs for these campouts at haunted cemeteries. We're like looking for Sasquatch or whatever the case may be. And then also, we got a couple other docs. We're going to be doing like a remote viewing doc, probably called Sight Unseen, Remote Viewing Declassified. So I think that'll be dope. Although we need to manifest that, because the two main people, Hal Putoff and Russell Targ, I can't remember. I don't know how to say his last name, but like the guys that basically started it, I got no's. I got a no for they were either too old and didn't feel they had the vim and vigor to be energetic on camera. I tried to persuade them. Otherwise, hey, ain't nobody ever looked bad in one of our docs, baby. They always are in a good mindset. Didn't work. The other, just it's hey, it doesn't suit it this time. But we're going to make that one happen. And then one on like reincarnation and past life regressions as well. Probably called it past life.
Love it.
So we're going to keep cranking them out, man, if you'll keep watching them, dude.
Absolutely. I love it. I love you guys. I like having you on. The energy is good. You guys are fun. You are like polar opposites, and it works so well.
It does.
I'm the good-looking one.
He is. He is. Now, if you check that news clip on ABC 27, you'll be like, "Oh, dude, Tyler, how did you let Chris surpass you?" That's cool.
It was your shoes, dude. I told you.
It wasn't the shoes. It was when I took the alien mask off, because we had to like wear an alien mask when they started. It's on Halloween, right? And it's like, well, these people are nice enough to have us on, so let's at least give them something entertaining. So we start with the alien masks. Yeah, when we take it off, Chris's hair still looks good. My one side of my beard got pulled out like 3 inches, and my hair was like just jacked. So it's cool. I let him have his day. It's no big deal.
Yeah, no, it's good.
He did great, though. I was proud of him.
Yeah, thanks for having us, dude. Anytime we'll come back. Yeah.
Yeah, anytime we'll make it work. Well,
yeah, and if we want to do one on somehow the NSA, we might have to get your dad involved, bro.
Hey, do it, because he's got some good stories about the NSA. He's got some good stuff.
my wheels are turning. How available is he?
He's retired. He's very available. Like,
Oh, baby.
so,
All right, we'll see if the ether throws us a title at, and if it does, and I run it by Chris, we might just start ripping one like that. That's how all these other ones happen, man. We filmed them all between August 17th and the first 3 were done by like November, and In Plain Sight was filmed from January 2022 to April 2022, and we had all, but so if your dad's down and we think of something juicy,
he
my
looks like a
buddy's journey
mountain
out there
man
for
and has a voice like Barry White. Like, he'd be a good one to have on your show, man. He'd be good.
sold. Sold.
All right, you all have
Let's
a good
manifest.
night, and
You too. Thank you.
I'll talk to y'all later. Thank you.
Thanks, my man.